Discover the touching moment a billionaire learned his dream ring had an incredible hidden past. Jack Thompson never imagined he'd find himself at a quaint jewelry store in downtown Millfield, surrounded by the scent of vintage wood and the soft chime of an old-fashioned bell. A self-made billionaire at just 32, he was used to grand boardrooms and ritzy luxury, but today, he was on the hunt for an engagement ring to propose to his college sweetheart, Emily. The anticipation buzzed around him as he stepped inside, yet a strange unease stirred in the pit of his stomach. Did he deserve this happiness? Would she even accept a ring that might not fit the image he'd built? Mr. Fields, a sprightly old man, greeted him with a grin that felt too warm for the chilly autumn day. Jack's eyes traveled over shelves filled with sparkling gems, yet he felt a growing pressure on his chest, memories of long hours and cold, lonely decisions flashing before him. As the elderly jeweler shared his store's legacy of survival through turbulent economic times, Jack felt an involuntary connection to the past, the weight of history clashing with the future he hoped to build. Heavy with expectation, Jack's heart raced as he explored the collection. Each ring echoed stories of love, but one particular piece caught his breath, a vintage diamond ring with intricate etchings that seemed almost sentient. When Mr. Fields noticed Jack's captivated gaze, he leaned in, his voice lowering to a whisper. This ring belonged to a brave woman during the Great Depression. She did everything to keep her family afloat, pouring love, sacrifice, and resilience into every action. Something in Jack tightened. This story resonated in a way he couldn't shake. He didn't just see a ring, he saw traits he admired, those of his grandmother, her toil to provide, her unwavering spirit. Yet, as he listened to Mr. Fields' tale, he couldn't ignore the rising conflict within. Did he really want to wield that weight? To wield a symbol of struggle when he'd been dodging the scrutiny of wealth? As whispers among his corporate comrades echoed in his mind suggesting he keep such history at bay lest it reflect poorly on his polished image, he felt himself spiraling deeper into his own doubts. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the proposal day drew near, Jack paced in his office, feeling queasy with an internal tug-of-war. Should he cherish the ring's legacy, or bury it beneath a facade of affluence? The dichotomy felt impossible. He'd thrived on the perception of success, yet craved the authenticity embedded in that ring. Tight muscles made it hard to breathe as fear flickered through him. What would happen if he embraced the ring and revealed its past? Would his partners still stand beside him, or would they recoil at the connection to less fortunate times? The closer he got to his proposal, the sharper the edges of his conflicting emotions became. Jack knew that embracing his grandmother's legacy would mean risking everything he'd built for himself, teetering on the edge of an emotional breakthrough. An insistent question echoed in his mind. In a world focused on wealth, can one still find pride in the humble roots that shaped them? A sudden realization swept over him. Perhaps the ring held the true potential for change, a chance to illuminate the often pained tales of others, growing stronger with authenticity as its core. But as the shadows crept closer, it was clear, Jack's next step could bury or reveal everything he stood for. Jack stared at the polished mahogany desk, its surface reflecting the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. A stack of pending reports loomed beside him, reminders of the relentless grind he had imposed upon himself in the name of success. But today, those papers felt distant, overshadowed by the reverberations of Mr. Fields' story echoing in his mind. He craved clarity, a path towards a decision that balanced both his identity and the legacy he wished to embrace. Days passed with Jack distracted, his focus splitting between elaborate charts and memories of his grandmother's unwavering strength. Each moment spent in the office served as a nagging reminder of the personal sacrifices that had propelled him here and the personal joys he simultaneously feared to lose. Those whispers of doubt from his partners haunted him, as if they had infiltrated every corner of his immaculate workspace. Jack had thrived on the belief that vulnerability equated to weakness. Yet, that very ring challenged his assumptions, presenting an opportunity for deeper connection not just with Emily, but with himself. Jack grasped the edge of his desk, contemplating the implications of unveiling the ring's story. He envisioned the moment of disclosure, watching as Emily's eyes widened at the history interwoven with the symbol of their love. But what of his colleagues? Would they dismiss him, viewing his embrace of that history as a failure to maintain the facade he'd worked so hard to cultivate? He clenched his jaw, grappling with the specter of judgment. As the clock moved inexorably towards the proposal day, Jack began to resist the tightening grip of fear. Instead of recoiling from vulnerability, he sought to confront it, to understand what made his heart race and his stomach churn. He revisited the jewelry store, seeking wisdom from Mr. Fields. Each conversation with the old man felt like unearthing another layer of his own convictions. "Every story deserves to be told," the jeweler remarked one afternoon, polishing another vintage piece. "You choose how to honor it. That choice speaks of you more than the wealth you hold." Those words lingered like an unyielding anchor, steadily battling Jack's fears as if to implore him toward a deeper understanding of his identity. He found himself returning to the concept of roots, of embracing where he had come from without fear of judgment. Yes, those roots were sometimes tangled in hardship and sacrifice, yet they also bore the sweetness of resilience and tenacity. With each passing day, Jack felt the crack within his psyche widen. The incongruities between the man he presented to the world and the man he truly wished to be began to gnaw at him. He was not merely a successful billionaire but a product of every experience that had shaped him. He allowed himself to write down his reflections, acknowledging the shadowy fears tethered to his success, confronting what brought him joy, and what the ring signified. Each heartfelt word felt like a step towards embracing the whole of himself. As he penned his thoughts, an audacious determination blossomed in him. The firm resolve to communicate authenticity illuminated the path forward. Jack envisioned his proposal not just as a symbol of love for Emily, but as a declaration of his journey, one that honored the past while stepping boldly into the future. And then came the moment, the decisive turn. He knew the time had finally come to confront the looming shadow of his identity. Each heartbeat resonated with the weight of choice, drawing him into the next phase of his personal evolution, a confrontation with the self and the world that he had feared might reject him. The decision echoed within him, and Jack realized that love was powerful enough to challenge the facade he had constructed. Just as he prepared to take that leap, his phone buzzed. A familiar name popped onto the screen, a call from one of his business partners. He hesitated, the heavy feeling of unspoken truths settling in the air around him. The moment was about to shift entirely, leaving him at a crossroads yet again. Would he answer, revealing a side left carefully hidden for so long, or maintain the polished front? Jack could feel the pulse of uncertainty quickening in his chest. The phone buzzed again, a stark reminder of the world waiting outside his private turmoil. An image of Emily flashed in his mind, her laughter, the warmth of her embrace drawing him away from the cold grip of corporate expectation. It took every ounce of will not to reach for the phone, to remain present in this moment of personal reckoning. That he allowed a deep breath to ground him, eyes drifting to the papers sprawled chaotically over his desk. Each report represented a piece of the relentless ambition that had defined him, yet today, they felt like ghosts haunting the perimeter of his consciousness. Jack was aware that easy victories no longer satisfied the hunger within. It was time to embrace a different kind of success, one rooted in authenticity. With a sudden decision, he silenced his phone, dragging a hand through his hair. He needed clarity, not just answers about work but insights into who he was becoming. Each tick of the clock echoed the urgency to confront his fears without the cushioned distractions of corporate chatter. Confrontation demanded an audience beyond the boardroom. This was about unveiling himself to Emily, revealing not just the man she had grown to love, but the boy woven from threads of pain and triumph. His resolve solidified as he reflected on his childhood, those afternoons spent at his grandmother's feet as she spun tales of strength, hope, and resilience. Mr. Fields had encouraged him to tell his story. Maybe it was time to weave the strands of that past into the fabric of his proposal. How would Emily feel knowing she was stepping into a narrative rich with lineage, love, and struggle? Standing up, he paced in front of the window, the skyline of the city sprawling beyond, shimmering under the afternoon sun. He yearned to bridge the gap between his present and the legacy he carried. The ring, its golden shimmer in his pocket, felt heavier now, laden with potential revelations. He imagined slipping it onto Emily's finger, not just as a promise but as a passageway into his world. That very act could transform their future, an invitation for her to understand him on a deeper level, beyond profits and loss statements. But what if his truth was met with skepticism? What if her initial reaction was disappointment? The thought struck as a cold wave, but just behind it came the warmth of reassurance. He could not let the fear of rejection dictate his actions. Change was born out of discomfort. This was his moment to break free from the straitjacket of expectations. Closing his eyes, he envisioned the moment, sharing the story of the ring, its ties to his ancestors, to his grandmother who had faced life's tumult with unwavering courage. He could almost see Emily's eyes softening, her heart opening as she unearthed layers of his soul. It wasn't just a proposal, it was an unveiling. Jack felt the excitement rise, mingling with the residual anxiety that threatened to upend him. With newfound determination, he returned to his desk and began meticulously drafting a plan for their moment. Each word reflected his commitment to honesty, not just to Emily, but to himself. And amid this composed chaos, the reality set in. This was more than a mere proposal, it was a quest for connection. The anticipation pulsed beneath his skin, igniting a fire that felt both thrilling and terrifying. And in that bubbling space of vulnerability lay a defining truth. Love had to confront fears, it had to transform the fractured pieces of his identity into something whole. His thoughts drifted once more to his partner's call. Leaving it unanswered had created a distance, but could there be a risk in addressing it? Just as he prepared to jot down key points for making his pitch to Emily, the sound of the phone vibrating against the polished surface caught him off guard. The choice lingered in the air. Would he heed the call of corporate obligation, or surrender to the whispers of authenticity that pulled him toward a life he truly desired? In that poignant moment, Jack realized. The crossroads he faced was not merely about business but about embracing the painful reckoning, to shine a light on the truths he had considered too vulnerable to share. Suddenly, the stakes felt higher than any boardroom drama could offer. As the phone buzzed again, Jack weighed his options, a decision bubbling within him that could shatter the polished facade he had built. Would he answer and sway back into the polished world of his partners, or step into the uncharted territory of his truth with Emily? The weight of his choice bore down on him, thick with uncertainty and promise, leaving the next step shrouded in a veil of suspense. The phone vibrated again, its persistent interruption mocking Jack's desire for clarity. He stared at the screen, the name of his partner looming ominously like a thundercloud. The professional part of him craved the instant gratification of success, the accolades, the reassurance of validation that came with answering. Yet the evolving essence of who he was compelled him to ignore it, even as doubt teased at the edge of his resolve. Jack turned away from the phone, pushing it into the recesses of his mind. The chaos of reports and proposals faded, replaced by the anticipation that accompanied the thought of Emily. The image of her, radiant and inquisitive, ignited a longing to bare his soul. He felt an urgency, a desperate need to take the raw vulnerability of his past and craft it into a foundation for their future. Sinking back into his chair, Jack found his thoughts drifting to the years spent chasing symbols of success, the promotions, the raises, the high-stakes negotiations. They had all led him to this crucial decision, but what had they really taught him? He was beginning to realize that meritocracy often masqueraded as hollow recognition. Each achievement tasted bittersweet, leaving a lingering question far deeper than all the asterisks attached to his resume. He resolved to use the ring as an emblem of his transformation. Instead of a gilded cage for Emily, he decided it would be a key to unlock their shared futures. He rummaged through the mementos from his childhood, searching for something that could evoke the strength of his grandmother, the woman who had instilled values in him that now felt distant. Among the trinkets and faded photographs, he unearthed a small, delicate locket. It had belonged to her, adorned with an engraving that read courage, love, legacy. It was a tangible connection, a testament to the resilience that had defined his lineage. He placed the locket next to the ring on his desk. In tandem, they formed a perfect duo, the promise of a new beginning fused with the wisdom of the past. Jack envisioned handing both to Emily, creating a narrative of their intertwined lives, rich with heritage and full of uncharted possibilities. Yet, as excitement surged, the specter of fear crept back in. Would she understand the depth of his transformation or simply see it as an elaborate gesture insufficient to shift the currents of reality? Jack's internal conflict intensified. It wasn't just fear of rejection, it was fear of vulnerability itself. His profession had trained him to analyze deals and mitigate risks, but no amount of corporate strategy could prepare him for this emotional gamble. He needed to learn to embrace the uncertainty, to transform that fear into growth. It was time to confront the real antagonists, his own insecurities and the expectations he had set for himself. He closed his eyes, envisioning the moment with Emily anew. This was not merely about presenting a ring or locket, it was about articulating the narrative that had shaped him and, in turn, would shape them. The thought of her wiping a tear away sparked a drive deeper than he had ever known. With newfound clarity, he grabbed a notepad and began sketching a framework of his proposal, a blend of heartfelt words, history, and aspirations. Each bullet point became a pillar holding up the structure of what he wanted to convey, an unfolding tale that demanded to be shared. Just as he began to enjoy the rhythm of vulnerability, his phone buzzed again, this time louder and more insistent. It reverberated like a challenge, pressing him against the wall of choice yet again. Would he allow the echoes of the corporate world to intrude upon this moment, or would he take a leap of faith into this new chapter he was eager to write with Emily? Jack took a deep breath, the decisive moment hanging in the air. The anticipation crackled within his chest, a perfect mix of excitement and dread. One choice would lead him back to the sanctuary of business as usual, while the other would plunge him into the tumult of honest connection. He reached for the phone, his heart racing. Would he accept the call and retreat to the familiar, or would he forge ahead into the vulnerability that promised true growth? The decision hovered tantalizingly, ready to define not only the outcome of a proposal but the very essence of who he was becoming. Jack's hand hovered over the phone, the harsh light of the screen illuminating a moment filled with unresolved tension. He could feel his pulse in his throat, the very rhythm of his heart pulsing, a relentless reminder of the stakes. He had spent years measured by success and performance metrics, yet here he was, on the precipice of a deeply personal venture. The weight of that vulnerability felt more significant than any contract he'd ever signed. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with determination, rather than fear. This act of reaching for the phone felt like stepping onto a tightrope. The question echoed: would he be swallowed whole by the expectations of the industry he had become accustomed to, or could he take a courageous leap into a realm of genuine connection? Setting the phone back down was an act of defiance against his former self, a decision grounded in ambition but rooted in authenticity. He embraced the uncomfortable silence, savoring the stillness that enveloped him as he turned back to the notepad. The words were trapped like butterflies, waiting to be freed from their constraints. He scribbled notes feverishly, each line imbued with the vulnerability he had long suppressed. "This is a partnership, our partnership," he wrote. In that moment, he saw the consistency in his sketches echo elements of the relationship he envisioned with Emily, a bond founded not just on love but on mutual respect, interdependence, and shared dreams. Jack's mind fluttered from the poignant memories of his grandmother to dreams of a future with Emily. He recalled afternoons spent in her garden, the scent of jasmine mingling with her laughter as she encouraged him to pursue his endeavors with passion. "Courage, love, legacy," he murmured. It was a mantra he carried but seldom articulated. Resilience wasn't just a family trait, it was a potential way forward, yet the churning storm of doubt dared to rise again. Would Emily appreciate the depth of his commitment? Would she question his motives, seeing past the shimmer of the jewelry to the underlying uncertainty? He pushed his worries aside, channeling that inner turmoil into his pen. Let every word speak to his truth. He set the notepad down, leaning back and allowing a fraction of serenity to wash over him. It was as if a small window had opened, allowing a breath of fresh air to circulate in the confines of his mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, this journey would become an opportunity not only to share his heart with Emily but also to reclaim a slice of himself he had lost in the relentless pursuit of approval. Jack stood, stretching out the knots of tension in his shoulders. The absence of the corporate intrusion heralded a newly embraced reality. This confrontation with vulnerability stood not merely as an obligation to Emily but as an invitation to explore who he had become outside the confines of societal expectations. Movement flowed through him as he approached the mirror hanging on his office wall. The reflected image of Jack gazing back was different from the one he had seen just weeks prior. He saw someone who could envision a new narrative, one where success was not quantified solely by corporate ascension but by connection, generosity, and love. He returned to his desk and reached for the phone once more. A chime pulsed through the room as he hesitated. Was this a sign of temptation or a nudge toward clarity? As he donned a determined expression, he resolved to redefine the parameters of success not as a corporate ladder but as an evolving journey told through intimate moments shared with Emily. Before he could lose his nerve, he brought the phone to his ear, allowing a renewed sense of purpose to overtake him. But as he dialed, the sound of a knock at the door startled him. It was Josh, his partner, with an urgency that cut through the moment like a knife. "What is going on, man?" "We need to talk," Josh said, eyes darting between Jack and the phone in his hand. The inevitable confrontation loomed large, and Jack felt the ground beneath him shift. Wasn't he ready for this? Would he be pulled back into the fray, or could he maintain focus on the truth he was about to share? The choice encapsulated everything at stake and the uncharted territory that awaited them both. Jack's heart raced as he looked at Josh, whose urgency was palpable. The moment hung in the air thick with anxiety, making it hard to breathe. Part of him wanted to scream that he needed this reprieve, this call to Emily to signify a shift in his life. Yet the other part, the conditioned, corporate side, demanded he play the part of the dependable partner. He steadied himself, grappling with the conflict that flared within him. "Can it wait?" Jack replied, his voice tinged with impatience, but he could already sense the answer. Josh's expression was set, eyes narrowing slightly as he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "No, it can't," he asserted, his tone firm. "It's about the project launch. We're behind, and there are implications you need to understand. Can't it wait just a few minutes?" Jack felt the desperation creeping into his voice. In this moment of palpable tension, he realized how deeply he craved the grace to explore the commitment he was eager to embrace with Emily, but Josh shook his head firmly. "We need to talk about the direction of the company, man. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than us." Each word pierced Jack's burgeoning resolve, realigning his attention to the corporate beast he felt so torn from. The office around him felt suffocating now, everything bearing the insignia of their past alliances: framed photos of team launches, celebratory bottles of vintage wine. His eyes wandered over the office space, but they didn't find peace. Instead, the cacophony of numbers and targets filled his head, demanding his allegiance. But inside, Jack yearned for connection over corporate gains. "Not everything has to be about the numbers, Josh." Jack burst out, surprising himself with the heat of his own words. The boldness of this reply filled a fragment of his spirit with hope. Would this confrontation offer him a chance to stand his ground, to reclaim layers of himself that had been buried? Josh's eyes widened momentarily, then he softened his stance. "I get it. I really do. But what you've been promoting, a partnership, a human-first approach, this needs backing. We can't lose sight in the chase." For his voice trailed off into a familiar silence of high stakes and expectations. Jack stood at the precipice of a truth he had been skirting. "But I'm tired of chasing. If we're going to lead, let us do it in a way that invites humanity back into our strategy, not just spreadsheets." A flicker of realization crossed Josh's face, mingled with the concern of his partner losing focus. "You talk a big game, Jack. But let us not forget where we've come from. What are you prepared to sacrifice?" That question reverberated in the room, clamoring against the walls of Jack's mind. Did he want recognition from his industry, steeped in the tall tales of success, or would he step into vulnerability and expand his vision of wealth through meaningful relationships? The contrast tormented him, each direction leading to a version of himself. "I don't know," Jack admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, suddenly feeling thin and fragile. "Maybe I've been chasing the wrong dream." "What do you mean by that?" Josh's tone shifted from sharpness to a mix of intrigue and concern. He studied Jack's shifting expression, sensing the tremors of transformation beginning to unravel within his partner. Jack couldn't hold back any longer, the realization began to crystallize. "It's not just about the project or the numbers. I want my life to mean more, to matter in ways that spreadsheets can't capture. I want to build something with Emily that can stand the test of time. I want to be that kind of partner." Josh leaned closer, capturing Jack's gaze. "This isn't easy, Jack. If you're going to pursue this, you need to be ready for everything it entails. Not just in your personal life, but here too." Jack's resolve stiffened, wrestling against the fear of what it would mean to venture into sincerity. "I understand, and I'm willing to explore those waters. I need to confront the doubts that have shackled me." "Then we should make a plan," Josh replied, the urgency replaced with a hint of optimism. "I won't hold you back, but don't underestimate the commitment it requires." Jack nodded, feeling a blend of trepidation and fierce determination. Perhaps this was the intersection of his personal and professional arcs. The possibility of clarity dawned on him, a bridge across the chasm of uncertainty, but before he could deepen the conversation, his phone buzzed, vibrating with the weight of unanswered questions. It was Emily. Would this call be the moment he wanted it to be? Would he embrace the shift fully, or would past commitments pull him back into the fray? Jack inhaled deeply, caught in a whirlwind of impending choice and urgency. The moment of truth was arriving, and it only amplified his determination to guide his life anew. With lingering doubt, he pressed the button to answer, ready to reclaim his narrative but unprepared for the revelation that awaited him on the other end of the line. Jack's heart pounded in his ears as he answered the call. "Emily," he breathed, his mind racing with both anticipation and the weight of unresolved feelings. After the tense conversation with Josh, their paths diverged, his life tilting toward an undefined promise with Emily while tethered to the shadows of corporate expectations. "Jack." Her voice rang with warmth, cutting through his anxiety. "I was hoping to reach you. We need to talk about something important." The briskness in her tone sent a pulse of urgency coursing through him. "Yeah, I've been wanting to talk too," he replied, forcing a calm he didn't quite feel. "What's on your mind? You know about the project I've been working on, right? The community initiative," she began, a hint of excitement creeping in. "Well, we just got an unexpected opportunity to partner with a huge organization for funding. But it requires a commitment, a serious one," she continued, her words laced with uncertainty. "I wanted to know if you'd be on board." The weight of her request hit Jack like a freight train. The urge to say yes bubbled within him, but the fear of entangling himself yet again in a commitment was daunting. "What kind of commitment?" he managed to ask, wary of where this conversation might lead. "We need someone with experience in corporate partnerships, someone who understands the language of business to help translate our vision to them," she said, her voice steady. "I believe in this project, Jack. I think it could change lives." His mind flashed back to the conversation with Josh, the wrestle of aspirations and responsibilities knotted tighter. Did he dare step up for this? Was this a chance to reframe his definitional success? "I may have some ideas," he said, hesitating. "But what about my role at the firm?" Emily's silence echoed through the line, punctuated by the soft hum of the city outside her window. "I know it's a big ask. I just wish I had someone like you on my side." Her sincerity pulled at something deep within him. Maybe this was the nudge he needed to ignite a new path that bridged his ambitions with personal fulfillment. Jack leaned back in his chair, his thoughts rising and falling like waves. I want to help, but... The hesitation trailed off. What was he sacrificing? His security, his expected life trajectory? Or could this open a door to redefine not just his professional identity but his personal one as well? You don't have to decide right now, Emily said, her voice now a tender tether back to reality. But I could really use your perspective. We could create something impactful together. As she spoke, Jack envisioned a collaboration grounded in shared values, a connection that redefined success. A flicker of excitement ignited, tempered by a creeping dread of the unknown. I'll think about it, he replied, attempting to maintain his resolve, though the yearning to pursue the opportunity was harming his rationality. Just know that I believe in you, Emily's words wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Yeah, I believe in us too, Jack responded, the phrase slipping out more easily than he anticipated. A shift began to crystallize within him, a growing awareness that he didn't need to abandon one dream to chase another. After they hung up, Jack sat still for a moment, the space around him buzzing with possibilities. The reality of his choice lingered heavily, the stakes laid bare. He could either stay trapped in the security of his corporate role or leap into a partnership that resonated with the very essence of who he wanted to become. His phone buzzed again, a message from Josh. We need to finalize plans ASAP. Can we meet tonight? As Jack considered the intersecting pathways, one leading toward safety and the other toward risk-laden vulnerability, he realized it was more than just his career on the line. It was about crafting a life worth living, about having the courage to embrace love and passion in every facet. With a renewed sense of agency, Jack contemplated his next steps. He would confront Josh, string together his aspirations, and possibly rejoin a life with Emily that aligned with his redefined values. This could very well be the turning point that reshaped his existence. Jack took a deep breath, the next move looming large before him. The conversation with Josh could chart his corporate future, but the allure of a transformative partnership with Emily might redefine his entire life. He texted back, "Let us meet." With the rebound of his decision echoing in his chest, he felt a nascent determination rising. But as doubts lingered like shadows in the backdrop, he wondered, would embracing this path truly lead him to the happiness he sought, or would it unearth challenges he wasn't ready to face? Jack arrived at the cafe, the persistent hum of conversation and the clinking of coffee cups crashing against his rising tide of nervous energy. Each step drew him closer not just to Josh, but to the precipice of a decision that promised to reshape his professional landscape. The familiar smell of roasted beans was more comforting than invigorating, a brief reminder of the days when a simple cup of coffee felt like a luxury rather than a means of masking anxiety. He spotted Josh at a corner table, tapping away at his phone with intense concentration. The sight of his colleague reminded Jack of the countless hours spent strategizing and sprawling over blueprints for their projects, the very grind that was now both a comfort and a constraint. As Jack approached, the realization hit him that this meeting was not just about business, it was a confrontation with his past choices and a pivotal moment in deciding his future. "Jack. Good to see you," Josh said, looking up with a flash of enthusiasm before it transitioned to a semblance of seriousness. "We have a lot to catch up on." "Yeah, I got your message," Jack replied, sliding into the chair opposite Josh, feeling a knot in his stomach tighten further. "It sounds urgent." "It is." Josh leaned in, lowering his voice as if sharing a state secret. "Our project is on the brink of major funding, but we need to finalize some elements fast. I really need your insights on the corporate partnerships we've been discussing." As he spoke, Jack recognized the fire in Josh's eyes, a drive that had ignited their collaboration but was now at risk of overshadowing their personal ambitions. "Right. So you're saying we need to move quickly?" Jack asked, masking his tension with professionalism. Yet, each word felt like an anchor, dragging him down into the depths of compromise. "Exactly. I understand the deadline is tight," Josh continued, "but with your expertise, we can not only secure funds but set ourselves apart in the market. Think about it, a powerful pitch, a major investor. We could wait." Jack interrupted, feeling the pressure mount into a crescendo. Are we still on the same page? This isn't just about funding for you, is it? I need to know we align on our vision and priorities. Josh's expression shifted, the barb of tension slicing through the moment. What do you mean? I mean, Jack exhaled sharply, his chest tightening, I know losing focus on our mission can lead us astray. I was just offered an opportunity that could fundamentally shift my priorities working on a community initiative. Josh's brows furrowed, and his initial eagerness dulled into something almost dangerous. So that's what this is about? You're actually considering turning your back on this? It's not about turning my back, it's about choosing a direction that reflects who I want to be. Jack's voice rose, the anxiety of doubt morphing quickly into fierce determination. I want my work to mean something beyond profit margins. Silence enveloped them, thick and tangible. Jack felt a shift within himself, a realization that each decision he faced was pivotal. The choice between corporate security and a commitment to a cause that resonated with his heart weighed heavily, yet it also illuminated a path he'd long suppressed. What if he could find a way to integrate both worlds, after all? That's a romantic ideal, Jack, Josh replied, a hint of sarcasm lacing his tone. But you know the business world isn't about dreams, it's about bottom lines. Maybe we can change that? Jack countered, empowered by a sudden spark of bravery. The conversation spiraled into a back and forth as Jack struggled not only to assert his newfound desires but to detect the limits of his courage. Each point he made felt less like a defense and more an expedition into uncharted territory, a terrain where ideals clashed with the harsh realities of corporate machinery. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cafe floor, Jack shifted in his seat. Decisions loomed ahead like storm clouds, unpredictable and heavy with consequence. It seemed clear he could no longer be the passive navigator of his life course, merely absorbing the force of others' winds. He needed to seize the helm. Let me make this clear, Josh, Jack stated, a resonance in his voice he hadn't felt before. I want to be on a path where my work fuels not just my ambition, but also my purpose. I can't keep making excuses to ignore what matters to me. But what you're suggesting is risky, Josh replied, his tone wavering between frustration and exasperation. Are you really prepared for that? For the backlash? Jack held Josh's gaze, feeling the weight of their history and the intertwined fates of their careers. One way or another, I have to follow this. So yes, I'm prepared. They both fell silent, the cafe around them buzzing with life, oblivious to the gravity of their conversation. Inside, Jack felt acutely alive, standing at the crossroads where dreams and reality collided. In the aftermath of their exchange, uncertainty clouded Jack's mind. Was he ready to step away from the comfort of established paths and embrace the tumult of new opportunities? As he left the cafe, his heart thrummed with a combination of exhilaration and anxiety. He had expressed his desire to pivot his life, but now he needed a concrete plan. He had to reconnect with Emily, not just to discuss her vision but to clarify his own. And as the city hustled around him, Jack realized that the real decision was not just which possible future to embrace. It was about unearthing his authentic self amidst the chaos. He pulled out his phone, fingers hovering above the screen. He needed to reach out to Emily again, to discuss what could be the dreams just waiting to be awakened. But before he could type, a new message notification caught his eye, freezing him in place. It was from Emily. Jack, can we meet? I think there is something crucial I need to share with you. The anxious flutter in his stomach resurfaced. What revelation awaited him now? Jack stared at the message, his heart pounding in his chest. Emily's words were a beacon, guiding him through the fog of uncertainty. He felt the familiar flutter of anxiety, but beneath it, a current of anticipation surged. What could she possibly have to share that was crucial? He hesitated, considering his options. Waiting too long could mean missing out on something significant, perhaps a chance to involve himself in a transformative endeavor. The initiative was not just a project, it was a rallying point for his aspirations, a chance to follow a path aligned with his renewed sense of purpose. After a moment of deliberation, he responded, "Absolutely." "When and where?" The reply came almost instantly, "Let us meet at the old bookshop by the park tomorrow at 2 p.m. I think you'll find it worth your time." Jack felt a jolt of excitement. The old bookshop was a treasure trove of hidden gems, much like the conversation he hoped to have with Emily. For as long as he could remember, bookstores had been his refuge, spaces that promised discovery and transformation. Standing outside the cafe, Jack took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill his lungs. Today had shifted something within him. Just hours earlier, he had felt suffocated by doubt, but now the clarity of his ambitions thrummed with vigor. He had made a choice, but more importantly, he was open to the unfolding of his journey. The next morning arrived brisk and bright. Jack dressed meticulously, choosing a button-down shirt that felt slightly more polished than his usual attire. It was a subtle nod to the change he was embracing. Today, he wouldn't just be Jack, the corporate cog. He would be the visionary he aspired to be. As he walked to the bookshop, Jack's mind raced with questions. What could Emily possibly have that was so crucial? Had she discovered a funding opportunity? Perhaps a partnership that could elevate their vision? With every step further into his thoughts, he felt the urgency amplify. The weather mirrored his mixed emotions, the sun beaming gently but shadows lurking at the edges of the park. Arriving at the quaint bookshop, he noticed the worn wooden door and the faint sound of a bell chiming above it as he entered. The ambience was intoxicating, the scent of aged paper and coffee enveloped him like a warm embrace. Jack scanned the snug interior, a modest homestead for countless narratives. He found Emily perched on a wooden stool in the corner, flipping through a thick volume, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looked up as he approached, her expression shifting from contemplation to a welcoming smile. There she was, an embodiment of creativity and passion, the traits Jack sought to foster in himself. "Thanks for coming, Jack," she said softly, putting the book down. "I knew you'd appreciate this place." "Of course," he replied, taking a seat across from her. "You mentioned something crucial. What's on your mind?" Emily leaned forward, her voice lowering as if discussing a state secret. "I've been working on something that directly connects to your ambitions. It's more than just sharing resources, it's about blending expertise." Jack felt an electric charge in the air, the weight of her words pressing against his chest. What if this was the breakthrough he desperately needed? "I've come across a community project that's looking for partnership and funding, but they also need strategic guidance," she continued. "That's where you come in. It's aligned with your vision," and I thought. Jack interrupted, heart racing. Could this be the bridge? The integration between corporate world and meaningful impact? Yes. Emily's enthusiasm ignited the space around them. "You could take the lead, work directly with them, and use your corporate experience to shape something real, something that matters. Imagine how we could challenge the norm together." Her eyes held a spark of possibility, one that ignited the fire within him. Could he carve a path that married both ambition and purpose? "I'm in," he said, his voice steady. "Let us do it." As they spoke further about details and strategies, Jack realized this was more than a mere collaboration, it was a testament to his growth. He was stepping into a role beyond the shadows of his former self. But as the discussion unfolded, Jack suddenly recalled Josh's earlier skepticism, those ominous words about risks. An unsettled feeling crept back in, reminding him of what he stood to lose. Would his commitment to this venture alienate old partnerships? Would he be seen as a traitor in the corporate realm? With each thought, a tightness gripped his chest. Was he making the right choice? Emily, sensing his hesitation, paused. "Jack, this is an opportunity to redefine success on your own terms." He looked at her, torn between fear and a compelling sense of momentum. She was right, yet the path ahead remained clouded, filled with uncertainty and potential backlash. The moment felt charged, teetering on the edge between comfort and growth. What lay before him felt monumental, rife with opportunities and challenges that he had to navigate. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of several decisions pressing down on him. I need to ensure my current commitments won't be jeopardized. It matters to me to manage both worlds. Emily nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. We'll make sure of that. We can build a bridge that doesn't burn the past. As they continued their conversation, Jack felt a new resolve swelling within him. He was ready to tackle the complexities ahead, but he was also aware that balancing these choices would be no easy feat, and with that understanding, the weight of new revelations began to settle, whispering questions. How would he manage the existing partnerships while stepping into this new venture? And could he truly transcend the expectations that he once lived by? With the clock ticking down, Jack pondered as they discussed strategies. What if this is merely the beginning of a larger journey? And as he deliberated, another message chimed on his phone, pulling him back into the moment. It was from Josh. We need to talk about your changes. This might be tricky. Meet me later today? The familiar tension returned, slicing through his newfound excitement. Jack's heart raced again at the thought of facing Josh's backlash. He was teetering on a precipice. Was he truly ready to confront the storm that lay ahead? Jack stood at the crossroads of his life, the sunlight streaming through the cafe windows illuminating the path of potential. The last few months had been a whirlwind of introspection, self-discovery, and profound transformation. He could feel the weight of the ring in his pocket, his grandmother's legacy, echoing a history rich with sacrifice and resilience. It reminded him of who he was and who he wanted to become. Not only had his relationship with Emily flourished through the challenges they faced, but Jack was also beginning to find his voice. The choice to engage in the community initiative was not simply a diversion from his corporate duties, it was a declaration of his newfound values. He could feel the heartbeat of purpose thriving within him, urging him further along the road of authentic living. In the days leading up to their first project meeting, Jack had fully immersed himself in the world of community impact. The unique blend of his corporate savvy and a newly kindled passion for social responsibility had resonated on a level he had never known before. Collaborating with Emily had been invigorating, the conversations around strategy infused with creativity and mutual respect. Together, they were building a bridge between profit and purpose, a world where success was no longer dictated solely by spreadsheets. Jack now approached his business meetings with renewed energy, using them as platforms not just for profit, but as avenues through which to promote social change. The narrative that previously cast him as a one-dimensional corporate guy was evolving. During one pivotal board meeting, instead of adopting a stance solely focused on financial gain, he proposed a partnership with the community initiative aimed at addressing poverty and educational disparities. When the conference room filled with blank stares from his partners, uncertainty flickered in the air, but beneath their skepticism, Jack held firm. He articulated a concept where their firm could leverage its resources to align with the greater good, transforming their image from a profit-driven entity into one of community impact. To re-envision our success, we have to redefine our mission, Jack proposed, his conviction radiating from him. By investing in our community, we can foster both goodwill and long-term sustainability for our firm. It's time we show that real wealth is made by investing in people. As his words echoed around the room, a shift began to take place. He saw the subtle exchange of looks among his colleagues, indecision giving way to curiosity. It dawned on Jack that by sharing his vision, he was not only endorsing change but carving out a space for authenticity within a once rigid structure. Then came the moment he had anticipating. A board member raised a hand, voice hesitant but alive with interest. What would it take to actually implement this partnership? Jack felt a pulse of exhilaration. The seed of transformation was blossoming. What began as a singular proposal morphed into a collaborative brainstorming session, with colleagues leaning into the potential of a dual benefit strategy. A few months sped by with initiatives gaining momentum, and Jack's commitment to his vision solidified further. He received accolades, not only from his partners but increasingly from those in the community they aimed to uplift. Recognition blossomed from quarterly reports, community impact announcements, and expanded networks, all of which dissolved the boundaries between his corporate and personal aspirations. However, it was during a press conference announcing their first successful project launch that Jack truly felt the culmination of his journey. Standing in front of a gathering of reporters, community leaders, and partners, he could see their smiles and their hopes reflected in the glinting prize that hung from his pocket. The locket and ring felt like talismans of empowerment, reminders of his legacy intertwined with his present commitments. As he minced through the sea of questions and cameras, he paused for a moment. Looking out into the crowd, he offered, "I stand here grateful for the strength passed down to me. From my grandmother's spirit to Emily's inspiration, this moment symbolizes not just a business win, but a long overdue return to humanity in our endeavors." The room erupted in applause, but it was the proud glance exchanged with Emily in the crowd that filled his heart with warmth. Jack had embraced the journey, connecting his aspirations, his past, and his commitment to something greater. He had emerged transformed, a solid confidence radiating from his soul, recognized not just as a businessman but as a person of substance. Reinvention was his ally, and with it, Jack now set his eyes toward future potential, knowing full well that true success was just an elusive goal. It was a consistent journey of growth driven by authenticity. As he walked off stage, he knew he had grasped a genuine personal achievement. No longer was he defined by the effervescent glow of wealth. Instead, he shone brightly as a beacon of hope and change, simultaneously proud and humble. There may always be challenges ahead, but Jack was ready to greet each one as a new opportunity for growth. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The journey of personal overcoming is all around us.